How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Gym Range podcast. This is episode 9. We are presented by Vendetta Sports Media. I'm Carl Heiser. It's my co-host, Alex Cervantes. And today, as a wise man once said, is like Christmas Eve for college basketball fans. It is Monday, November 8th. Tomorrow, the college basketball season officially gets underway. And we are lucky enough to have that wise man with us today. We have Tristan Freeman. He's the site expert at Busting Brackets, a long-suffering fan of the Pitt Panthers. And and yeah, we're very happy to have Tristan with us today. So Tristan, how you doing?
I'm great. I'm fantastic. Thank you guys for having me on. Just so excited that the season's finally here after what feels like 2 years of previewing and off-season transfer coverage.
Amen.
Yeah, so Tristan, very well deserved, is now officially a credentialed media member. So he gets to cover, I think it's Pitt, Robert Morris, and some Duquesne basketball, right?
Yes.
Okay, wow. Yeah. So what's that process been like, and just how's that been for you?
Yeah, I didn't know much of what it's like to be media, go to things in person, but pretty much just reached out to all the SIDs of the schools and just talked about wanting to be able to cover things in person. And then after going to a few events throughout the off season, I was lucky enough to get credentialed for all three. And so far it's been fantastic to get a chance to talk to the coaches and the players face to face and see things live in person instead of just on the game. So it's going to be a really cool opportunity for me just to enhance my analyst skills when it comes to college basketball in general.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're very excited for you. Definitely well deserved. Tristan is one of the smartest people when it comes to college basketball that I know. So yeah, definitely be looking out for his coverage. You can follow him on Twitter at hoopsnut351. That's at hoopsnut351 on Twitter. So today's episode, we are jumping into some hot takes before the season starts. So we have 10 different categories for our hot takes, and we're just going to run right through them. So we have the Power 5 conferences, each one, mid-majors, a head coach hot take, a hot take about our favorite team. So we'll have Maryland, Duke, and Pitt, and then a preseason top 25 to miss the tournament. I'll call an audible here and say that it's just as valid of a hot take if you want to say that all of the preseason top 25 teams make the tournament. I think that's a fair take to have if you thought it was a stretch to pick one of the top 25. And then just a miscellaneous, so that one can be whatever you want. So let's kick it off with the ACC. Tristan, we'll throw it over to you. What's your ACC hot take for this season?
Yeah, so I think it feels like it's going to be nearly unanimous that Paolo Banchero would be the ACC Player of the Year, but I think there's a real good shot that sophomore guard Caleb Love could get some real consideration for it. I think UNC, from a roster standpoint, is the best in the ACC. I think there's some questions about whether Hubert Davis can be the guy, but I think when you have the bigs that they have in Brady Manick, Dawson Garcia, and Amano Baycott, I think they're all going to cancel each other out when it comes to the praise and accolades. But Caleb Love, who's going to have a front court to work with instead of the log jam of centers he had to deal with last year, I think he's going to be a prime breakout candidate. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's the lead scorer on the ACC regular season champion, which was automatically going to give him some real shot to win Player of the Year. But I think name recognition may give it to Banchero, but don't be surprised if Love is in the mix at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think I like that take a lot, actually, because reports so far, just from what I've seen, like on Twitter and out of UNC's camp, is that Caleb Love has improved his 3-point shot, and that's really going to pay dividends for them moving forward. Alex, do you have thoughts on the Caleb Love take? Because you're the Duke guy, so.
No, I feel like it's pretty accurate. Everyone I feel like is expecting Caleb Love to make some sort of leap, but like you said, there was a logjam last year in that front court, and Davis wants to play kind of 4 in, 1 out. We saw Dawson Garcia kind of step out in their exhibition game against Elizabeth City State. So, it's just going to be Baycott controlling that paint. RJ Davis and Kerr Walton are going to give space for Love to work. So it's definitely not like he could definitely win Player of the Year if Banchero, for whatever reason, kind of slips up, or maybe someone else takes a load in Durham.
Yeah, good stuff. All right, Alex, let's start over you. What's your ACC hot take?
Virginia Tech wins their first ever ACC tournament, and Mike Young gets the contract extension of his lifetime. So obviously they have Kevin Aluma, who I think is on everyone's ACC preseason first team. I'm high on this Hokies team. I don't know if it's a mixed bag when it comes to the whole college basketball media landscape. Storm Murphy from Watford was a massive pickup for that backcourt. Hunter Couture, I feel like it's just a solid 3-and-D guy. Like Justin Mutz will add production. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like the Hokies catch fire a little bit in February and March. And, Duke's always considered like the ACC tournament. Like, I don't know. I just feel like Duke never wins the regular season and they can always compete in the ACC tournament. But I just have a feeling it's Virginia Tech. Yeah.
Yeah, Tristan likes to go back and forth with some Hokies fans on Twitter. So what do you think about the Virginia Tech love from Alex?
Yeah, I think not Storm is a massive offensive upgrade from Virginia Tech's point guard situation. The concern is Tyrese Radford leaving so late. It gives questions whether or not they have enough backcourt depth. But I think the combo of Kevin Aluma and Justin Mutz, who's one of the most unsung heroes of college basketball, he can pretty much play multiple positions, good shooter, capable scorer. And I think as long as Virginia Tech's bench can give them something, I wouldn't be surprised if Virginia Tech's a top 4 team. It will, with enough, scouting reports on Aluma, considering that he pretty much came out of nowhere last year, will defenses be able to stop him easier? That may be the case, but I do trust Mike Young, and I think the Hokies, as much as it pains me to say it, it's going to be a really good threat in the ACC.
Yeah, the reason I laughed when Alex came with that take is because I didn't see his before, and mine is also that Virginia Tech wins the ACC tournament. I like the 1-2 punch of Murphy and Aluma with the kind of the supporting cast, and then I mean we saw a 1-2 punch with Georgia Tech kind of come out of nowhere and take the ACC tournament last year. Even though I mean it was a weird year, it was a different year, so maybe can't really count on things being that chaotic this year. But more often than not, the winner of the ACC regular season is not the winner of the ACC tournament. So, yeah, that's my take. That's my take on Virginia Tech. I agree with a lot of what Alex said. All right, let's move over to the Big Ten. I'll start this one. My Big Ten hot take is that I don't think that Brad Davison makes an all-conference team. I think there's a lot to be said for being the best player on a not great team. Wisconsin lost a lot of pieces in the offseason, and so a lot of touches will now go to Brad Davison as a fifth year. The thing is, I don't know that I really trust him to be the guy. Just with those touches, I don't know that giving him more touches will necessarily equal just a more productive season for him. And there's a ton of individual talents in the Big Ten that I think will squeeze him out for an all-conference spot this year. So that's my take on Brad Davison. And I'm just not very high on Wisconsin with what went down this offseason. I think defensively they'll be pretty good, but offensively I think we'll leave a lot to be desired. So yeah, Tristan, thoughts on that one?
I mean, it's hard enough as it is just to get all the quality big men on the first and second team for the Big Ten. I just think that with 15 spots, there's just not going to be enough room for a guy on a team that might not score even 15 points a game. You can make an argument that Northwestern and Iowa and even Nebraska are going to have all conference caliber players. But if you assume that Michigan, Illinois, Purdue, Indiana is going to take up 70% of space, or just not that much room to go. So you have to stand out statistically if you're going to get one of those all conference spots. And I think for a team like Wisconsin, who's probably going to be on the bubble throughout the year, it's just hard to envision Davidson getting that spot unless he's the clear-cut absolute star of the team and warrants that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Alex, let's move to you. What's your Big Ten hot take?
It's kind of like a two-parter, but Chase Audige makes an all-conference team in the Big Ten, and Northwestern climbs into the top 10. So, I mean, I understand Northwestern's in the basement of the Big Ten. They're kind of ranked anywhere from like 11 to 13 in a lot of previews, but maybe it's a little bit of the homer in me. I go here and I've got some of those guys in my classes, but like, I think Casey Simmons will be really productive as a freshman, kind of on that wing role. They don't have like I mean, the backcourt is 6'2" to 6'4", and that's ranging from Bowie to Audige, including Barry. I think Barry is going to have a step up in production. Hopefully, gets to double digits in scoring. But Chase Audige is going to be the go-to guy, even though the offense is going to go through Nance. So I feel like Audige is going to get enough touches and enough opportunities to kind of warrant a leap in points a game, and hopefully Northwestern has some semi-successful seasons, so I'm not miserable a winner.
Yeah, I mean, and you'll have beat for some of those probably. So
Hopefully,
hopefully they pull out some wins. But yeah, that's an interesting one. Tristan, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I think if Northwestern wants to get in the mix and be competitive in Big Ten, there's a case that they're going to need someone like Audige to step up. I think Boo Buie is a really good point guard, but he has a ton of ups and downs. And I think you can have someone who can consistently give you around 15 points a game, that someone who is capable like Audige, that would probably be the best thing for Northwestern this year.
All right, great. And now what's your Big Ten hot take?
At some point in the season, the Indiana Hoosiers are going to be ranked in the top 10. I think you can make a real good argument that just if you look at just the rosters alone, Indiana has a top 15 caliber team. But I think people, for some reason or another, are just so down on Mike Woodson because he doesn't have the charisma or the personality of a Juwan Howard or Nate Oates. But I personally don't care. I think he's a great X's and O guy. He has a ton of talent. Trace Jackson Davis, sort of falling out of the picture compared to some of the other bigs in the Big Ten, but he's just as good. You bring back a fair amount of talent. You add quality transfers and Xavier Johnson from Pitt. You got the Northwestern sharpshooter that Miller Coffin replace some of the production they lost on the perimeter. You add a bunch of size when it comes to Michael Durr at the center position that can give you an actual bruiser at the 5 spot. Then you return, guys like Race Thompson, Christian Lander, a former 5-star guy who I think after a COVID year reclassifying, you're going to see more of an impact from him. I love this roster. I think the coach is going to be good. And I wouldn't be surprised if they finish in the top 4 of the Big Ten standings and get a top 4 seat in the NCAA tournament.
All right, good stuff. I have been one of those people who's been a little critical of the Mike Woodson hire, but I'm fully prepared to eat my words. And I see the vision with Indiana. I don't know. You got to come down somewhere, so that's where I can. All right, let's move over to Big 12. Alex, do you want to start us on the Big 12? What's your Big 12 hot take?
Avery Anderson wins Player of the Year in an effort to spike the conference and the NCAA from one of the worst rulings I've ever seen.
I love that. I mean, there's not really a whole lot to that.
No, I mean that would be it. Like I just think I don't know what the effort's gonna look like out of Oklahoma State after that. I'm hoping to a certain degree they just try and ruin everyone else's season. I mean, just Avery Anderson's gonna have the keys to the car. He's gonna have a lot of offensive. He's just gonna have the keys to the offense. So hopefully we see that leap that everyone's expecting out of him.
Yeah, I'd love that if Oklahoma State just kind of came out of the gate ready to kind of shove it to everybody. But yeah, Mike Boynton I think might be the coach who can get them to do that. But my Big 12 hot take, this might be the hottest take I have on here. I think Baylor enters the tournament as an unranked team. I think people are vastly underselling the losses to that backcourt. Losing Butler, Teague, and Mitchell is a huge deal. And even though they have guys who can step up to replace them, I don't know how you replace 2 4-year guys who were both shooting like 45% from 3-point range, plus Teague coming off the bench, or even in that starting role. And a lot of people like Matthew Meyer to step up and be that guy, and I don't know if he can. He was kind of the 4th, 5th guy on that team, and just because he's returning, I don't think necessarily means that he steps up into 15 points a game, like all conference caliber player. I think he's a solid piece, but I think the Big 12 is going to be tough this year. A lot of really quality teams in there, and I think there's a chance that Baylor, with the losses that they've sustained, get knocked around a little bit and suffer some losses in the season. They have a tough schedule, so that's my hot take on Baylor. And I think that's probably the hottest take I have on here because there are people with Baylor as a preseason top 10 team, and I think that's fair. I think that's warranted. But that's where I'm. That's my take on Baylor. You guys, either of you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I honestly I love both of your takes. I think Oklahoma State before the postseason ban, my hot take for the Big 12 was going to be that Oklahoma State was a Final Four contender because I think Avery Anderson is that good, and they have so many returning good pieces like Moncrief Alexander, Caleb Boone, and the guards they have coming back. But unfortunately, they're banned. But they'll be a threat. And I had Baylor top 10, but I was so uneasy about them. Flagler was the fourth guard. And Mayer was the ultimate recipient of so many screens. I just left him wide open from three. That's not going to be the case this year. I also have concerns about James Akinjo because, the reputation about him is not good from two stops. And even though there were insinuated circumstances, you can't be considered a jerk at two previous places and think that you can just come to Baylor with your culture. Regardless what the culture is, you're the one that has to make the change. And if he isn't the leader that they need, I can actually see them going through ups and downs this year.
Okay, great. Now, what's your Big 12 hot take now that Oklahoma State cannot be a Final Four team?
Yeah, I think Oklahoma is going to not be in the NCAA tournament picture at all this year. I'm looking at the roster. I just don't see it. I mean, first of all, if Jordan Goldwire is a starting point guard, then I'm out on him on that because he's just not a starting caliber player in today's basketball where you need space. And he's a really good defender, but his defense just isn't good enough to warrant him getting the minutes he might do. And if it's not him, is Marvin Johnson, the transfer from the Ohio Valley, going to be it? Is returning guys, Kimoji Gibson, Elijah Harkis going to take that next step? And there's a lot of hype about Tanner Groves, the Big Sky Player of the Year from Eastern Washington, but the Big Sky doesn't play a lot of defense. And he's going to have to go up against David McCormick's and all the bigs throughout the Big 12. And if he's not a 12 to 15-point scorer in the front court, then I'm not seeing where they're going to get the offense. I'm not seeing where the defense is. I think Porter Moser is going to have this program in the top 20 mix in short time, but this is going to be some growing pains in year one with this makeshift roster.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think not a lot to add there. I think there can be a lot of optimism for the future of Oklahoma basketball. But as far as this year, I think it's going to be a rough year for them. Rough sledding. So, yeah, let's move on to the SEC now. I'll start this off because mine's pretty simple. I think Mississippi State finishes in the top 5 of the conference. I see a lot of people putting them in the 7 to 8 range. I have some depth concerns about them, but I think their starting 5 is good enough that they can, kind of come out of the fray in the SEC. The SEC is going to be nasty this year. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch, but I mean, just behind, Molinar and Jeffries and they got Rocket Watts and Garrison Brooks. Like, I like this starting 5 a lot. Maybe some questions about how it kind of looks on the court, but as far as talent goes, I think they have enough to be a top 5 team in the SEC. So that's a pretty simple one. So, yeah, Alex, what's your either take on that or just your hot take for the SEC?
Well, I mean, my take on that is the exact same thing because my hot take was Mississippi State finishes in the top 4 in conference play. So it's not that far.
Okay.
We kind of talked about in our SEC preview how high we were on Mississippi State, even though we kind of had them ranked in like that 7 to 8 range originally, or I did at least. But Auburn's dealing with their own issues with Flanagan, and I get that they have loads of upside, and I see it. LSU just lost Adam Miller. Florida's got some chaos a little bit. I just feel like it's all kind of bubbling, getting to a point where Mississippi State can kind of seize on all this momentum a little bit. They've got guys who've played in some of the top conferences in college basketball. You've got Garrison Brooks, who 2 years ago was battling for ACC Player of the Year. Like, it's not lost on me how talented he is, and you give him space. So, I think they can really make a run if the pieces all click, and they do have depth issues, but they can make it work.
And I just kind of wanted to echo what you said. Just a lot of the teams that have projected to be ahead of them have kind of run into some obstacles so far, like right before the season starts. And Florida, like we don't even know if Keontae Johnson's going to play. Like so far, he hasn't been cleared to play, and that I think seriously hurts Florida's outlook for the season if he doesn't see the court at all. But Tristan, just give us your thoughts, and then you can give us your SEC hot take.
Yeah, well, I can say that Keontae Johnson is done at Florida. I think the question is whether or not he's going to take the $5 million insurance policy or try to go pro. But his Florida career is over, which makes a lot more sense why they added C.J. Felder from Boston College for him. But incredibly enough, I'm looking at my paper for the SEC, and I have as my bold take that Mississippi State finishes in the top 5 of the standings.
Lovely. Love it.
Sure,
Love a good consensus.
Yeah,
love a
that's
consensus.
Good.
I mean, they've been flying under the radar all offseason. I think we know about the Tennessee, the Auburn, Arkansas, and Alabama. We especially because those coaches are flashy and they make the news. But I think it's going to be a great fit for Garrison Brooks from Mississippi State. I think Iverson Molinar is one of the most underrated players in the country. I don't think people know who he is. He has star potential. And as Alex pointed out, there's questions about the rest of the SEC. Not only just Flanagan being out, but are we 100% sure that Wendell Green's going to be an effective point guard in the SEC? Because it's him and Zep Jasper as the point guards. And mid-majors, especially to the SEC level, it's 50-50 at best on whether or not they're going to be able to turn it. Same thing with Tennessee, is Kennedy Chandler and Justin Powell going to be, as good a backcourt as the one they had last year? Is Brandon Hunt and Hatfield, the 5-star forward, going to be as good? Even with Arkansas and, Alabama has their injuries, Arkansas has a lot of pieces that can fit, but they're going to have some growing pains working out their rotation as well. And Ben Howland, former Pitt and UCLA coach, he's good. And I think Mississippi State might fly under the radar throughout the year, but I think they're going to be a consistent top 20 to 35 team all year and get enough wins to be in the top half of the SEC standings.
All right, love it. Love the.
Wait, I got a quick question for Tristan. Yeah. So you talked kind of about Alabama, Arkansas. You made no mention of Kentucky. Does that mean you think Kentucky runs away with the SEC title?
Oh, absolutely not. I have concerns about their defense on the perimeter, and I think I have concerns about their scoring up front. They have a few too many one-trick ponies for me to think that they're going to be elite all year. I think there's a potential that Duke, because they have no answer for Banchero inside, that it could be there, but it's going. I don't think whoever wins the SEC is going to have any fewer than 6 losses. I think it's going to be a lot of balance, but because they're all going to be pretty good and just beat up on each other, the SEC could easily get 8 to 9 bids if things work out.
Yep.
All right.
I agree.
Cool. Let's move on to Pac-12. Alex, you want to start us off on the Pac-12 hot takes?
I had tentatively on this, Oregon kind of runs away with the regular season title. And I get I'm kind of eating my words a little bit because I had UCLA winning the Pac-12 like 3-4 weeks ago when we did our preview. But I don't know, just something about it. Maybe it's just kind of this back and forth everyone's kind of having about UCLA. It's not lost on me. We've talked about it. They were in the playing game. They snuck by Michigan State, and then they went on this magical run last year. And they returned Juzang, they returned Jacques, they returned basically everybody. However, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's less of a hot take, but maybe Oregon sweeps them in regular season play. But I mean, the Pac-12 isn't that great. It's like those two teams are a clear cut above everybody. But I'm just thinking maybe Oregon has less slip-ups than UCLA, and UCLA maybe enters the tournament as like a 4 or 5. 3.
Oh, okay.
That was a lot of hot takes in one.
That was a lot of hot takes in one. All right, good stuff. Tristan, what is your Pac-12 hot take?
Yeah, I'm with Alex on the Pac-12 overall, but I haven't switched up. I think UCLA wins the conference, wins the regular season title by at least 3 to 4 games. I
Okay.
think there's a lot of questions with the rest of them. Washington State possibly in the top 5. I don't know if that's a good thing for the conference. USC having to move on without Evan Mobley. Is Isaiah Mobley the guy that can replace what he does? Because they don't have a lot in the backcourt. Tommy Lloyd, Arizona, Kerr Kriisa being the start point guard. Is he going to be that guy? A lot of questions everywhere else. But if you look at UCLA and Oregon, I do still have concerns that Will Richardson isn't the pure point guard that can win you a lot of games. I think you add a lot of guys like, Jacob Young, Quincy Guerrier, the Oklahoma transfer, Davion Harmon, a lot of guys that can create for themselves, which is good at times, but there is potential for Oregon to have a disjointed offense at times, and it could make them vulnerable. And I think when you match them up with UCLA head to head, you have guys on the wing like Peyton Watson and Jaime Hawkins that can guard up against Guerrier and Eric Williams. You have Miles Johnson now that can deal with the Oregon bigs. And I think there's a good chance that UCLA could actually sweep Oregon if they go up head to head with each other, which is why they would have a comfortable margin throughout the rest of the conference standings. But Oregon has potential. It's just going to have to work things out for
it. Absolutely.
So that's your hot take for the Pac-12 is UCLA just clears the field by 4 games. All right, good stuff. My Pac-12. So the more I look at my Pac-12 hot take, the less I like it. But Tristan mentioned he dropped Washington State. My hot take is that Washington State reaches the Sweet 16. There's no guarantee that Washington State even makes the tournament. And I think probably odds are that maybe they don't. But I'm pretty high on their backcourt with the additions of Flowers and Roberts and just the scoring punch that they provide. We saw the Pac-12 pull some shenanigans last year, and I am kind of just going off this like weird Pac-12 aura that the conference is giving off, and I think some weird team like Washington State winds up in the Sweet 16 when nobody expected it. So that's my hot take, Washington State. And this, by the time the regular season's over, this could very easily be dead and buried because they're not even like a bubble team. But I don't know.
They have an explosive enough backcourt in March in a 1-game scenario to do it. I think their concerns is whether or not the young front court can come along. But Michael Flowers has shown throughout his career he can score 20 to 25 anywhere, any level, in any conference. So I'm not worried about him and Noah Williams. I think whether or not the bigs can do enough, they added a top 40 freshman big, but sometimes when guys reclassify, it can go either way. But it wouldn't be shocking that they can get in there, even as a 7th seed. They have a potent enough offense to really scare the top seeds in the second round.
Yeah. So in a 1-game scenario, I do like them. It's just, I guess my concerns are just like over the course of a full season, how that shakes out. But if they get into the tournament, I think they definitely are capable of winning a game or two. Let's move on to the mid-majors. Tristan, what is your mid-major hot take for this season?
Yeah, I've been riding with them all offseason, so I'm just going to declare it that Grant Sherfield of the Nevada Wolfpack will be the Mountain West Player of the Year, 3rd-team All-American, and really set himself up to be a national star. And Nevada wins the Mountain West. I just love their offense. I love their pickups. Him, Desmond Cambridge in the backcourt. I respect San Diego State, but don't know if they have enough offense. Colorado State has great players in David Roddy and Isaiah Stevens, but not sure they have enough depth outside of them. I'm completely sold on the Wolfpack. I have them as a preseason top 25 team, and I would not be surprised if they go further. Just they go one step further. I wouldn't be surprised if they go further this year than they ever did under Eric Musselman.
Okay, yeah, the Nevada love. I've been seeing some of it from you, so I'm glad it's carried over to the podcast. I like the Grant Sherfield take. I think he is going to be better than people are expecting. I think that's for sure. Alex, mid-major hot take.
I think this one's a really hot take, but Gonzaga loses more than 1 game in West Coast Conference play.
Ooh.
So
Okay.
it's so I get Gonzaga is a clear cut above the rest with everybody nationally, which means they're 2-3 tiers at least above the rest of the West Coast Conference. But we give a lot of flack to that conference, and they've got BYU, they've got San Francisco, they've got St. Mary's. All three of those teams can compete with Gonzaga on just a given night, not any like just a random night in February and January. Like it could happen that they pull off an upset. So I think at least two of those teams pull it off. We don't know how the Timmy Holmgren tandem is going to work. Like Nemhard, is he just going to run the offense? Is he going to be like your go-to guy out of the backcourt? Rasir Bolton, I'm not sure what that's going to look like. Like I've got some, I was high on Hickman and Salas, but like I've got a little bit more apprehension about it. I still think they're ridiculously good, and Gonzaga is one of the clear-cut favorites for the national title. And they also haven't lost. They've also only had one loss or fewer in West Coast Conference play every season since the 2015-16 season, when they lost 3 times. So I think they lose 2 games.
Do you want to go even further with that and say who they lose to?
No, because that's too much. That's too much.
Okay. Yeah, good stuff.
I will say though, oddly enough, I think the biggest matchup problem is a team that Alex Sitting mentioned, LMU. I think Eli Scott is someone who the bruiser. You're not gonna be bigger than Gonzaga, especially in WCC. No. What you can do is outmaneuver them, and that's something that Eli Scott, the point guard, forward, center, coach, whatever you want to call his position, can be. And they got enough scoring as well, and they want to play a slow down physical style. I think BYU and San Francisco want to run it up the floor. I don't think you can outscore this version of Gonzaga, but LMU has a chance to really yuck it up. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're the one that beats them down, although it's hard to say that teams that are currently unranked are going to beat Gonzaga, especially since Gonzaga hasn't lost to anybody not named BYU or St. Mary's in almost 8 years now.
All right, my mid-major. So my original mid-major hot take was it wasn't really hot. It was kind of a lukewarm take. It was that this is the year that Gonzaga gets it done. They get over the hump. They win the national title. I think eventually, once when you have a program that's just kind of hovering around it for that long, eventually they're going to get one. But I'm pivoting, and I think St. Bonaventure enters the tournament as a top 4 seed. I think. Okay. I think they won the A10 last year. I don't think they'll have a ton of problems with it this year, other than maybe Richmond. But they bring back. They have 5 seniors in their starting lineup who all average double digits. Like they're just a deep, experienced team. And I think just collecting wins in A10 play, like there aren't going to be a lot of opportunities to slide them down in the polls or in the rankings. And so I think when all is said and done, they walk away with very few losses in the A10, win the A10 tournament, and then enter the tournament as a top 4 seed. So anybody want to chime in on the St. Bonaventure take?
It looks better now that Javonte Perkins of St. Louis is out. I think there could have been an argument that St. Louis had an even higher ceiling when it comes to their talent, what they had from St. Bonaventure, but the Bonnies have such a high floor. You know what you're going to get from that starting lineup. Ashuni is a national star, one of the best defensive big men. And, they have some really interesting games in a non-conference. As long as they win those, like games like Buffalo, and not slip up during league play, they absolutely have a chance to be a top 4 seed and make some real noise in the tournament, because I think that LSU matchup was just a bad one for them, because that was a team that could score from the perimeter, whereas St. Bonaventure likes to defend from the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'd agree with you that the loss of Perkins really, it helps my take for sure, and it definitely hurts St. Louis a lot as far as what their ceiling looks like. But let's move on. We're done with the sort of or conference team specific ones for now. So let's move on to a head coach hot take. I'm curious to see what these will look like. Tristan, you can start us off on the head coach hot take.
Yeah, so I think every offseason there's like one mid-major star that everyone's going to be looking at for where they end up. I think last offseason, UNC Greensboro, Wes Miller ended up at Cincinnati was sort of the big one. He's been the name for years. This year, it's going to be Dennis Gates of Cleveland State. He's a former Florida assistant, and I don't think people understand that when he took over the job, they lost their last coach in the middle of the offseason and had a transfer exodus. He took over when they only had 4 players, and this was 18 months ago. Since then, he made them competitive in year 1, and then last year, they won the Horizon League. And they did it doing the same style as Florida State, which is defense first and a ton of depth. That worked, and Horizon League is one of the top 12 conferences in the country, so it's no small feat either. They're the preseason favorite to win again. They bring back everybody. And I'm really interested matchup against BYU on opening night too. I think they could possibly cause a scare in them as well. Assuming they do well, once again make the tournament, his name is going to be on a national radar, and he's going to be the biggest offseason name to watch because all their best players are seniors. So there's really no point in him staying much longer once these guys all leave. And wouldn't be surprised if some of the few openings, and there probably will be a few in power conference level, that wants to get some of that Leonard Hamilton magic over here because his style works as well.
Yeah, I like the Cleveland State love, and I think that's a really good take as far as head coaches go. I'll move to mine. Is this one is maybe more reflective of this team's fans than the actual coach. My take is that at some point during the season, there will be calls on college basketball Twitter for Brad Underwood's job because Illinois fans are savages. And at the first sign of trouble, I think that they will jump to just the absolute extreme. Brad Underwood he won at Stephen F. Austin. He took Oklahoma State to the tournament. His first couple of years, though, at Illinois were pretty rough. And if you look back, when things weren't going very well, there were definitely calls of like, is he on the hot seat? And it was like year 1, year 2. Like they weren't really giving him a chance to really turn things around. And I think maybe Illinois, the Big Ten will be tough. I think maybe they get knocked around sort of middle of the season and people are like, I don't know, like, Io's gone. Like maybe Coburn doesn't live up to like what people expect of him, and it's like, all right, well now we got to look at the coach and Brad Underwood. I don't know. So I don't think it's necessarily reflective of Brad Underwood. I think it's maybe more reflective of the Fighting Illini supporters and how willing they are to maybe ride things out and give it a chance because they have been successful the last couple of years. So we'll see with the loss of Dosunmu, what that looks like for them. But
yeah,
that's my take. Is I don't know, maybe less head coach related, but yeah, that's my thoughts. Alex, head coach take.
It's similar to Tristan's Big Ten take, and I think Mike Woodson sets unrealistic expectations in year 1, and Indiana finishes in the top 4, and thus, Indiana fans, I would almost argue, are more crazy than Illinois fans in a certain sense, and Indiana has more reason, more history to kind of set that bar, and I just don't maybe we have a somewhat Mike Woodson, I'm not 100% sold on it, but I'm not 100% against it. Carl, you've kind of been very forward with your against the Mike Woodson hire. So I think he can rely on Trace Jackson Davis this season to get them out of some holes, and they can do some good work this season. And I think there are question marks surrounding the 3 through 6 teams in the Big Ten. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, cool. Good stuff. Let's go to this is a fun category. It's favorite team hot take. So this will be pretty specific to all of us. So I'll give a Maryland one, Alex will give a Duke one, and Tristan will give a Pitt specific hot take. So let's start with Tristan and his Pitt Panthers specific hot take.
Yeah, well, the first hot take I like to add is that Pitt won't lose any more players in the next week. It's been a brutal past couple of weeks. I mean, we lose Burton, but he'll come back. Nike Sabande's out for the year via injury, and Ithiel Horton, if I have to guess from what I've heard, is going to be out for the year via suspension, which leaves Pitt with literally one scholarship guard on the roster, and Femi Odekale. Now everybody knows I love Femi, but he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot. But one player that I will say that people outside of Pittsburgh aren't aware of, but has star potential, is Stony Brook transfer Mo Gee. He was the America East Plans Defensive Player of the Year. He's a 6'9" forward that came from the JUCO ranks, averaged 9, 7, and 3 blocks a year. He's an incredible athlete, and not only that, he's expanded his range. He's a good 3-point shooter. He's a great floor runner. Every time I've seen him so far in scrimmages and exhibitions, he's been the standout guy. I wouldn't be surprised if he puts up really good numbers, especially since he's going to have a high usage rate and gets consideration for all honorable mention all conference for the ACC. He's definitely a player to watch, and he's definitely going to be a really good impact transfer for Pitt this year.
Yeah, that's good. And we got to go with your Pitt take because you know Pitt probably better than anybody else on this planet. So that's good stuff. Alex, Duke specific hot take.
Wendell Moore's leap is more important to this Duke team's success than Jeremy Roach's leap. And so I think more we've seen his inconsistencies. We've seen that nearly scoreless run to like start last season, but then he goes off for 24 or 25 against Boston College. I think Roach, in watching Duke play, I think Roach is almost better kind of off ball and handling secondary duties, which I'm not sure that's great for like his pro outlook. But I think obviously Paolo's going to have the ball in his hands regardless of what this Duke team does. And I've talked kind of ad nauseum how I think Paolo can play point forward. But I think Wendell on both sides of the ball, he can guard. We've seen him guard 1 through 4. He's a co-captain of this team. I think if he can become not only like a 12 points a game scorer, but if they put him in like that pick and roll with either Mark Williams or Paolo, and Paolo just kind of pops, I think that's kind of going to lead this Duke team to success. And Wendell's had troubles with turnovers, but if he can remedy that, I think Coach K he had 6 assists in the exhibition. I think Coach K might lean more to Moore than he would to Roach. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah. Tristan, what are your thoughts on that one, on the Duke take?
Yeah, I still have my questions as to whether or not Jeremy Roach is a true point guard. You know, I was curious as to why Duke didn't go after more point guards this offseason, just in case, because I'm not sure if we're going to see much of Jalen Blake's this year for them. It can Roach be that guy? He's a combo guard. He's capable. He shared the backcourt with Goldwire.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that either he does or that it's a collective effort when it comes to passing. I think Bakera can pass. Keels is a good passer. Moore can be a passer. It might have to be that Duke's assist numbers should just spread out all over, or guys can just create their own offense. But in that case, you do want Wendell Moore either on the bench or off the bench or as a starter to give you consistent double-digit scoring. Because even last year, Duke was at their best when they had a proven scorer in Moore that can score anywhere on the court. But if he has those 1-for-5 games where he just disappears, and AJ Griffin, can be an impact player, there is a chance that his minutes is going to be cut as well, because Duke's already going to have a short bench as it is with their scholarship players. It's going to be on Moore this year to have a big impact. Otherwise, it's going to be his last year at Duke, because the next classes are going to come over and out recruit him anyway.
All right, let's move to my Maryland take. I wasn't really sure where to go this week. I'm a pretty cynical Maryland fan just because I've been let down so many times. We've had a lot of great rosters over the years that have just not amounted to anything. And but my blind optimism is showing itself again. And I'm going to say that Maryland finishes in the top 3 in the Big Ten. I don't know that I necessarily believe that that's going to happen. I believe it's possible, but I think people are, the guys over at Heat Check are very low on Maryland to the point where they're saying they shouldn't even be ranked in the top 25. I just don't understand that. As someone who watches basically every game of Maryland basketball, I think people are really overhyping how big of a difference the loss of Aaron Wiggins will make. I think Morcell is a big loss for sure defensively, and just as far as he was like the motor of the team. And so I think that is a big loss. But Aaron Wiggins had a lot of great skills that I don't know that he necessarily put together a lot of what I would call complete performances. And I don't think for all of his raw talent, I don't think he ever really put it all together. I think Dante Scott was arguably a more important member of the team than he was last season. But I was pretty much out of the picture. Wisconsin, like I said, is kind of, out of the picture. And I think there is a path for Maryland to somehow find themselves in third place. I don't think they finish 1 or 2. I think if anything, I think the ceiling is 3. The very limit is 3. But I think it's possible. I think it could happen. I think we saw Turgeon kind of make some things happen, win a tournament game with a not stellar roster last year. So I think I like it a little better this year with the addition of Wahab and Russell. For all of Russell's inconsistencies, I still think that they can, I don't know, make some things happen. So that's my thoughts on Maryland. I don't know if you guys want to chime in on that.
Yeah, I think Maryland has a high ceiling, but a low floor. I do think the loss of Wiggins is going to hurt a bit because there's just so much return in production throughout the Big Ten, especially at the top. I think Fast Russell will be okay as the point because he's going to have a lot better support and cast. But is he going to be that guy that can give you 15 to 17 on efficient numbers? I don't know. And Qudus Wahab from Georgetown, he gives them a true center, and you need that in the Big Ten, especially this year. But it's going to be an adjustment period for him because outside of Jeremiah Robinson, Earl, and Nate Watson, the Big East had little to no front court depth to deal with. He's going to have to deal with that all the time. So it'll be interesting to see what his numbers are. But I think Maryland will be good. I think they'll be in and out of the top 25. Unfortunately, I didn't have them in after the loss of Wiggins. I had to bump them out. I also bumped Virginia Tech out. So, just it was a hard group to come into. But
yeah,
I think Maryland will be a tournament team at least.
Okay. Maybe. I can take that. I'll take it. Yeah, that's a hot take, but I love my Terps, and so I got to do it. Next category, moving right along, we'll just run through these real quick. Preseason top 25 team to miss the tournament. Like I said, it's probably fair to say that if you want to have the take that all the top 25 preseason teams will make the tournament, I think that's just as valid. But Alex, what is your pick for the preseason top 25 team to miss the tournament?
So easy hot take for that category for me is just to say Virginia. We have loads of questions about their offensive arsenal. Where is that going to come from? I have great faith in oh my gosh, and Tony Bennett. I almost blanked on his name for a second. That was so bad. And Tony Bennett as a coach. But if I'm going really hot take, I'll say Ohio State. And it's just because I have questions about how they replaced Dwayne Washington. And I was looking through their schedule. They face Indiana at home, and they have they go on the road to Purdue, they go on the road to Michigan. If they lose those 2 games in non-conference to Duke and Kentucky, like it's not their non-conference schedule doesn't blow me away, doesn't merit enough value to kind of, in my mind at least, warrant maybe a selection. You need to have those quad 1 wins. They've only got Maryland at home. They have Indiana at home, and they have Michigan at home. Otherwise, they travel to the Big Ten powers. So if stuff, E.J. Liddell could certainly save them in games, and I think he will. That's a super hot take to say Ohio State won't make the tourney. especially considering there are a lot of people's like top 4 seed. But like if I'm going really bold, like I could see it happen.
Yeah, it just like they flame out and are just
Yeah.
yeah. I think there's a few options for who you could pick to just absolutely collapse. Um, Mine was also Virginia. I think that's, it's kind of vanilla just because they're the number 25 team in the top 25. But I'll just, I don't have anything really to add. I love Tony Bennett to death, but I just don't. Offensively, they lost a lot. I don't see Beekman really like shouldering the load. I don't see Kihei Clark really stepping up. We kind of know what he is at this point. So that's my take. If I wanted to go really bold, um, I think there's at least a track record to say that Memphis would miss the tournament, but they just have too much talent for me to really
Yeah.
even be willing to say that would happen at this point. It's just Penny hasn't gotten it done yet, and so I think there's a lot of pressure on him in this year to get it done. But I'm not going to say that Memphis misses the tournament because I don't believe that. Tristan.
Yeah, so I crossed Maryland off that part, but that didn't leave me with 2 other teams though. I am struggling to see the hype of UConn. Losing James Bouknight, he was so much of their offense that wasn't replaced. Is Tyrese Martin, RJ Cole leading scorers on a tournament team? Can Adama Sanogo have that breakout season in the front court? And there's a chance that they could be a top 10 defensive team this year. And if that's the case, then they'll win enough games to make it. But if they're just top 30 defensive and potentially, out of top 100 offensively, I could see a scenario where they lose a lot of games and be on the bubble throughout and could potentially miss a tournament if they things don't happen. And Auburn's a team that I talked about their backcourt before, but are we sure Walker Kessler is going to, as a sophomore, turn into this 15.8 rebound, 3 blocks shots guy? Is he going to be that guy? Is Jabari Smith, 5-star freshman, is he going to have a major impact? The loss of Flanagan maybe can be offset by Devin Cambridge, who can be a really good shooter, but Auburn's floor is there might not be a team with more variance in terms of their floor and ceiling than Auburn. And I can see a scenario if the SEC is really good and the guards struggle to run the backcourt that they could fall out of favor.
Okay. Yeah, I agree also that I think the range of outcomes for Auburn is pretty broad, low floor, high ceiling type of thing. But all right, last category. Let's just run through this so Tristan can get about his day. He's got important things to do. Miscellaneous. So this can go in any number of directions. Tristan, you can start us off on the miscellaneous hot take. Just one you throw in at the end.
Yeah, I think just looking overall college basketball, I think we're going to see a lot of breakout sophomores. I think last year was just brutal for the COVID year for so many freshman players, especially guys who reclassified. Things were just so different. I think we're going to see a lot of true sophomores really come out and have big years. And that has a domino effect on the transfers because a lot of teams added transfers under the belief that, they would have decent to average sophomores. But things could really change with a lot of these rotations. And we could see upwards to 40 to 50% of transfers not have the impact we believe, which would have a huge effect on the rankings and how we view all these teams for the NCAA tournament. Because realistically, not many transfers, especially ones who go up a level, don't do as well. And I think there's going to be a lot of guys we talked about this offseason that, they could be a star, they could be all conference player. And we look a month into the season and they're not even in the rotation anymore. So that's going to be a fascinating storyline to watch throughout the offseason with all these transfers that are moving around.
All right, sweet. Alex, what's your miscellaneous hot take?
I think that the dramatic Coach K farewell videos we're going to be getting before every game is going to annoy people on Twitter more. Like you're going to see more outrage than the current outrage around the Applebee's Fancy Light commercial. So I think that the dramatic, we're going to have the somber music. We're going to have everything on like a black drop. Everything's going to fade away. Like the stuff that, especially the thing that ESPN will do before the game in Cameron in early March against UNC, that will annoy people more. And just the thought of Coach K having 32 games to like have a farewell tour and say goodbye to college basketball will irk people more than college football and probably college basketball's most hated commercial.
Oh, all right. That's very self-aware of you as a Duke fan, so I appreciate that.
It's all good.
All right, my miscellaneous take is that after a year where blue bloods were down across the board, I think at least 2 blue bloods make the Final Four when all is said and done. So you can take your pick: Kansas, Kentucky, Duke, UNC, UCLA. Like, I think at least 2 of them end up in the Final Four. And if you want to throw in, some of the non-traditional blue buds, like you can. But I think of those teams that I just mentioned, I think at least 2 of them end up in the Final Four.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Tristan, thoughts?
I mean, a lot of these teams are going to be on revenge tours. That's what we're going to hear. Whoever wins between Duke and Kentucky, revenge tour. If Michigan State upsets Kansas, revenge tour. I mean, it's going to be somewhat nauseating to hear these teams with all the resources in the world act as underdogs and no one believed in us and all that. But it comes with the territory. I enjoy these programs and these fan bases being competitive because it just makes the slander all that much better when they fall in one.
Mm-hmm. All right, great. That's gonna do it for us. We just ran through 30 odd hot takes for the upcoming season. Season starts tomorrow. You guys will see this by the time the season's probably underway. But big thank you to Tristan for joining us for this episode.
Yes, thank you
for taking the time to be with us today. Make sure to follow him on Twitter at hoopsnut3351. And then check out bustingbrackets.com to see the analysis throughout the season. Tristan is, between writing and editing, single-handedly responsible for hundreds of thousands of words worth of college basketball content. So be sure to go support him there. As for us, you can find us on Twitter at GemRangePod. Hit us up, tell us what you liked about this episode, tell us what you absolutely hated about this episode. And then, hit us with the subscription on YouTube and follow us on Spotify so you never miss an episode. Thanks again to Tristan for joining us today. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you guys next time.